What's going on, kings and queens? Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. It's time for us to get that moment, that time to sit back and relax, get in a comfortable chair, lay down on that sofa, get in the bed, get on the floor with a pillow, a beanbag, whatever it is, where you can get comfortable and sit back and relax. Get you something cool or hot to sip on, whatever makes you feel good. Be it a glass of wine, a cup of tea, as we say, a cocktail or a mocktail. I'm keeping it cool because I've got to go to work tomorrow. So I'm just still sipping on that ginger ale, keeping it copacetic. And also, if you're driving, I just want you to just stay alert, be safe on that road, take your time, and just sit back and chill. Don't let any of that road rage catch up to you. So in the last chapter of Shortcut, in chapter 2, Ernest went to stop by his mother's after work to kind of let her put her eyes on him and let her know that he is safe and okay. And he's just pretty much convinced in his mind that the time is right to move forward with his business plans. But before he can tell her his business plan, she tells him some news of her own. And that is she's not doing that well. She had a doctor's appointment and they're kind of letting her know that her kidneys might be going out. So that's something that she's worried about. She's missing days at work. And Ernest, who has to kind of take up those loose ends, he's stressed now too. And that lets him know that it's time for him to grow his business so he can grow his income. Okay, before we get into chapter 3, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you're thinking about the book and give me some comments about what you think about it as well. Here we are, chapter 3. On Saturdays, Ernest always opened up the shop early. When Leon, always the second person to come in, got there to ruminate over his morning coffee, it gave Ernest a chance to go and meet Vince at the gym for a workout. The two of them had been doing that since high school to stay connected as the directions of their individual paths began to deviate. Vince was working with some medium weight barbells when Ernest walked in. "Is that all you got?" Ernest teased as he pulled his t-shirt over his head. Vince laughed. "Man, you know this is my cool down. I did a world-class workout before you got out of bed." "Yeah, right," Ernest said, slapping his hand. Then he grabbed a pair of 15-pound dumbbells to warm up. "All I need is a minute to catch up with you." Vince put down the weights and picked up a towel to wipe the sweat from his face. He and Ernest were running dogs from way back, and they were always honest with each other. But after he left the shop, he thought about what he had said and regretted the way he came off. "I wasn't trying to crash on you yesterday, ma'am, but I'm serious about what I said," Vince told him. "You need to up your game and bring it out of the hood. There's nothing going on there. You don't owe anybody anything. You can make some real dough downtown with high-end clientele that would never set foot in King Cut." Ernest knew it was true. He thought about Theo Brooks, the CEO of Black and Blue Entertainment. He was one of the clients that he serviced at his location. It was a pen office suite with a view above riverfront. He paid Ernest $100 for his cut and shave and tipped him an extra $100 every 2 weeks. "I hear you, man. I was up all night thinking about it," Ernest said, putting his knee on the weight bench and picking up a 30-pound dumbbell. "With your skills, man, there's large money to be made out there for you. I'm talking about professional brothers who like to keep their look tight at all times." "I've been wanting to go that route for a long time, man, but whenever I'm ready, something always comes up. Now my mama is sick and missing days from work. I know her check has been short and I have to cover her expenses with the shoestring I call my budget. My money is not even funny. It's fucking hilarious." Vince chuckled. "That's deep, man, but you can still make the move. I got you. Whatever you need, just say the word. You're my brother." "Thanks, man. I appreciate that, but I can't borrow money from you. Money can take out a friendship quicker than anything else. It made Judas turn on Jesus." Vincent laughed again. "I hear you, but don't let it go. Take some time. Put a proposal or a business plan together and go to your bank and apply for a business loan. There are private investors out there too. We can go in together." "That's a bet," Ernest said, taking the heavy barbells from his friend. "To do this right, I need to get in there with the big Benjamins." Ernest was restless all Sunday. He was itching to get through their weekly family ritual of his mama coming over, her cooking dinner with Rochelle, and then them all sitting down at the dining table with the kids for an hour. He had a ton of work to do to get ready for his appointment at the bank tomorrow. He hadn't mentioned it to Rochelle or his mama. If he didn't get the loan, he wouldn't have to worry about telling them that either. The dinner of pork chops and gravy, macaroni and cheese, cabbage, and cornbread tasted as good as it looked. Ernest practically inhaled his plate full. For the rest of the time, he bounced his foot impatiently under the table while Sheila and Rochelle went over every song, chapter, and verse of the morning church service, including the sermon between their bites. EJ, sitting next to him in his high chair, was just as fidgety as his dad, playing more with his food than eating it. Rhonda was focused on reading her Facebook page and her phone, and Rihanna, wearing her usual headphones, was singing under her breath. Finally, he thought when the chatter died down and they were full to the brim. Rochelle wiped her hands and took EJ out of his high chair to let him roam around on the floor. All right, girlfriend, she said to Rhonda and Rihanna. You don't need to wait until late to clean up the kitchen. I gotta study for my final exams, Rhonda, the oldest, said, getting up from the table. My chemistry teacher don't play. I got homework too, Mama, Rihanna said, hoping she wouldn't have to clean the kitchen all by herself. You girls go on and hit those books, Sheila said, rescuing her granddaughters. I'll help your mama do the dishes. You don't have to do that, Rochelle said with a sigh. It's no big deal. Ernest can go on and drive you home so you can relax. I know you're probably tired. I'm all right, Sheila said, pushing back from the table, as long as he gets me home in time to watch The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Ernest checked his watch. You might need to ride now, Mama. I gotta stop for gas, he said, anxious to get back to put his proposal together. Don't let Ernest rush you, Miss Sheila, Rochelle said, going into the kitchen. There's probably some game coming on he wants to watch. That's fine. I'm ready to get out of these clothes anyway, Sheila said, lifting her purse from the back of the chair. Come on over here, EJ. Say goodbye to your grandma. Go on and take him with you, Rochelle, in an afterthought. That way she would be sure that Ernest wouldn't make any other stops on his way home. It didn't matter to Ernest. He couldn't wait to get back. He picked up his son and headed out the front door with his mama behind him. What's got you on edge? Sheila asked after he got EJ in his car seat. Nothing, Ernest said, dodging her question. I was thinking we might need to move to a bigger place so you can stay with us if you need to. Well, you can stop thinking about that. I like my privacy. But if you don't want to live with us, it would make me feel better if you lived closer to us. Child, I'm only across town, not in another state. All right, I'll leave it alone for now. Ernest let it go and mentally began organizing his business plan. Sheila looked out the side of her eye at him while he drove. She had raised him, so she knew there was something more on his mind that he was keeping to himself. When they were almost there, she casually turned to her window. What did that friend of yours decide about opening up his shop? He's going to see if he can get a loan from the bank to finance it. I wish him the best on that, she commented, still gazing through the window. He should do fine as long as he's careful not to step too high too fast and get carried away. He won't. He's got his head on straight, Ernest said confidently, pulling up in front of the duplex. Plus, you can't get anywhere if you're afraid to move to the next level. Sheila opened her door. I'll be praying for him, she said, getting out of her car. Slow down, Mama, Ernest said, opening his door to get out of the car. I have to get EJ out of his car seat. Leave him be. He's sleeping, she said, looking in the back seat. I don't have no problem going in the house by myself. Ernest closed his door and rolled down the passenger side window. Okay, then, I'll stay here and watch until you're inside. I love you, Mama. You're my heart, son. Ernest watched her from the street, wishing she would let him do more for her. When she got the door unlocked and opened, he saw Buttons jumping up and down on her hind legs, happy to see her. Sheila waved back at him to let him know that everything was all right before she closed and locked the door. Usually, Ernest drove down 4th Avenue to Broadway and then down 8th Avenue to get home. But tonight he jumped on the interstate to save time. When he got back home, EJ was still asleep. He carried him from the car into the house and laid him down in his bed and slipped off his shoes. Rochelle was in their bedroom on the phone with somebody discussing what was happening on her TV show. Quietly, he went downstairs in the finished part of the basement that he had transformed into his man cave. He kept a desk and a file cabinet there to handle the business for King Cut. He started with his past 3 tax returns, a list of his assets, checked his inventory, and got his bank balances in order. Then he leaned back in his office chair and did a full contemplation of opening up a male spa. He weighed the pros and the cons before he opened a blank Word document on his laptop and began his proposal. On Monday afternoon, while Rochelle picked up the kids from school, Ernest strolled into the Third National Bank downtown on Commerce Street. He was dressed in a dark blue pinstripe suit, a lavender shirt with white stripes, a lavender pocket square, and navy Italian wingtips. He was cleaner than the Board of Health, as his mama's boss at Mary's Barbecue Pit used to say. With his leather-bound portfolio under his arm, he was the picture of a successful businessman, photo ready for the cover of Black Enterprise. Inside the heavy brass-trimmed glass doors, you could almost smell the money. Without a doubt, you could see it in the grain of the cherry wood furnishings, the gleam of crystal from the lighting, the immense oriental rug centered on the floor, and the impressionist art that lined the walls. He approached the information desk in the center of the lobby. "Hello," he said with a smile, speaking to the white woman sitting there. "I have an appointment to see Glenn Charles." She smiled back at him. "He's on the fifth floor in suite 524. When you get off the elevator, make a right." "Thank you," Ernest said. His heels clicked against the marble floor as he moved towards the three elevators in the lobby. He pressed the brass button with the arrows pointing up and waited in front of the middle elevator. From there, it didn't matter which door opened first. The door on the left parted first and Ernest walked on by himself. He pushed the number 5 and looked at his reflection on the brass wall of the elevator until the muted bell sounded that he had arrived on the 5th floor. Down the hall on his left, he saw the half-open door of suite 524. He peeped inside and saw a man about 55 years old, thin, salt and pepper hair, silver wire framed glasses, wearing a gray plaid suit, sitting behind a huge walnut desk. Ernest knocked softly on the door to get his attention. The man looked up, straining through his glasses. "Mr. Shaw," he said, sounding like it was a question. "Yes," Ernest said, extending his hand to shake. Mr. Charles stood up and shook his hand. "Hello, Mr. Shaw. Good to meet you. Come on in and have a seat. Let's talk about your business venture." Ernest sat down in one of the two dark wood chairs with blue tufted seats in front of his desk. He slid it a little toward the center where he could look between the Chinese bonsai tree and the orange orchid plant on the front corners of the desk. "Thank you, Mr. Charles, for meeting with me today," Ernest said graciously. "I didn't expect to be able to get an appointment with you on such short notice." "Please call me Glenn. You know what they say, time waits for no man and time is money. Here at Third National, we understand the urgency of the business world. We want to be able to assist you in all your financial needs." "I appreciate that very much. I called here first because I've been doing business with Third National Bank for years." "Can I get you something to drink?" Glenn asked, raising his hand as if he had forgotten something important. "Water'll be fine," Ernest answered. Glenn reached up and handed Ernest one of the bottles of water from a nearby shelf. Then he leaned both hands on his desk and said, "So tell me what you have in mind for the expansion of your business." "I'm not interested in expanding, Glenn. I want to begin something totally new. It would be a full-service spa for men. I have a proposal with me for you to take a look at," Ernest said, opening up his portfolio to show his budget and plans. "Wow," Glenn said, going down this line item column. "This is much more than I expected. The initial investment is over $250,000. That's right at our cap for small business loans." Ernest ran his hands back and forth over the creases in his pants legs as his confidence in the outcome of the meeting wafted like a birthday balloon quickly losing air. "I built my shop from nothing, and it has been profitable for 7 years," Ernest said to assure Glenn he was worth the risk. Glenn shook his head slowly from side to side. "For this sum, we would have to try for a small business administration guaranteed loan. We need financial statements from King Cut and cash flow projections for the new venture to complete the application." Unable to gauge his reaction, Ernest shifted back in his chair while Glenn read the rest of the proposal and turned the pages. The exotic colors of the orchid bloom on the right corner of the desk kept drawing his eye. It seemed out of place among the cool dark colors that decorated the office. With every passing minute, Ernest felt more like that bright flower. He wanted to show his talents to the world and flourish. He was destined to be held down in an isolated place where he couldn't be valued. When Glenn finished reading the proposal, he handed the papers back to Ernest. "Like I said, We need a little bit more to evaluate the loan. Whatever you need, let me know and I'll put it together, Ernest replied with only a fraction of the enthusiasm he had when he walked in. Glenn stood up and walked over to the front of his desk, signaling that the meeting was over. Ernest zipped up his portfolio and rose to his feet in front of him, taller by at least 4 inches as he gazed down at Glenn's face as he walked into the door. Put together a list of your business assets that we can use for collateral and get it to me as soon as you can, Glenn said, stopping in the doorway. I'll take your application to our review committee and we can make the loan request to the SBA if need be. I'll get that back to you in a few days, Ernest said, knowing that wouldn't help boost his application very much. Most of the equipment and furnishings he was working with were old and probably needed to be replaced. While they were standing there, an attractive black woman walked towards them in the hallway, and Glenn's face lit up. By the way, what area were you looking for your new location? He asked Ernest. Downtown or in the Gulch would be prime spots for me, Ernest answered, turning to leave. Hold on for a second, Glenn said, smiling as the woman got closer. Hello, Eva. Nice to see you. How have you been? No complaints, Glenn. How about yourself? She said, returning his greeting while giving Ernest a lingering once-over. I'm great. I might have a client for you, he said, glancing at Ernest. This is Eva Hamilton. Eva, this is Ernest Shaw. He's in the market for some commercial real estate for a new business venture he's planning. Eva nodded and smiled at him in approval. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Shaw. Likewise, he said, eager to get to the elevator. Here's my card. Call me, she said, handing it to Ernest and making eye contact. I'm sure I can help you find the perfect spot. Sure, I'll do that, Ernest said, sliding the card in his breast pocket and stepping backwards a few steps before he walked away. What's his story? Eva asked Glenn as she watched Ernest walk away. He runs a barbershop in North Nashville, King Cut. He wants to open an upscale men's barbershop downtown somewhere. How's it looking? He's done all right for himself. However, at first look, he might be trying to bite off more than he can chew. But we'll see what collateral he can bring to the table. Interesting, Eva murmured as Glenn walked back into his office. Actually, she was more than interested. She was intrigued. The fact that he hadn't given her a second look struck a chord with her. That didn't happen often. Staring down the hallway at him, she thought, I don't know what that man is asking for, but if he can deliver what I need, he's going to get it. When Ernest got off the elevator, he passed the information desk in the lobby on the way out. A young white woman sitting there called after him. Have a nice evening. Same to you, Ernest replied with a fake smile, knowing the odds were against it. He had planned to pick up Rochelle and the kids after the meeting to go out to eat, but there was nothing to celebrate. When he got to his car, he tossed his portfolio in the trunk, took off his jacket and tie, laid them in the back seat, and drove straight to the shop. The steering wheel suffered intermittent jabs all along the way, even though he was pissed at himself. His financial statements from the barbershop were a sham and wouldn't match up with his IRS filings. Nearly all the proceedings from his business were paid in cash, and half of them weren't even reported. He shook his head in exasperation. Every time he tried to give himself an edge, he stabbed himself in the back. And that was chapter 3. Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Be safe, and we will move on to chapter 4.